Being really strong and sticky is good and all, but when it comes down to it, clothes maketh the man. Wait, that's a different franchise. Stan Lee noted about Spider-Man that when he's in his costume, he could be any one of us. And that was part of the charm of Spider-Man. Well, it could be any one of us as long as we get bitten by a radioactive spider and get spider powers. Everyone who has adopted Spider-Man so far has taken the great responsibility of the Spider-Man suit seriously. Just how seriously? Peter Parker was first played on the big screen by the breakout star of Cider House Rules, Tobey Maguire, and directed by a director best known for his cult horror films. Luckily for all of us, Raimi was a fan. That meant that there was some casting so perfect that it was hard to impossible to follow. Rosemary Harris looked like she was the model for the comics Aunt May, and J.K. Simmons did J. Jonah Jameson so well he traversed the multiverse. The next step was getting the costume right. That meant making it fit Maguire snugly. Rather than have Maguire just hang out in the wardrobe department all the time, they instead had him come in for a full body casting, which is pretty routine, except that Maguire had not told anyone that, he was claustrophobic. They all figured it out when Maguire started to black out during the process. Tom Woodruff Jr. from Studio ADI then had to tell the studio that their Spider-Man shouldn't be in the spider suit too long. Ever the pro, however, Maguire took the prototype suit home to help his body acclimatize to it. Sadly, he could not wear his old costume for No Way Home because it had not survived the ravages of time. A lot of work went into Tobey Maguire getting buffed to be a superhero. Spandex and skin tend not to work together as well in real life as they do in the comics, so the team had to come up with foam muscles that were attached to the suit so they would stay in place. The team would further develop the process for Superman Returns. You remember that movie? Had that guy from the Arrowverse as Superman? Lex Luthor and another overly complicated real estate scheme? Yeah, you remember. Anyway, between the first and second Spider-Man movies, there was another costume hang-up, in that 4 of them were stolen. After an 18-month investigation, they found the culprit, a former security guard for Warner Brothers, where he snuck away with a batsuit and a mannequin at the time worth $150,000 American. I suspect they arrived at that value as that's what he sold it for. He also sold the spider suits, but they were all eventually recovered. After the first boot came to a close, it was time for the first reboot, The Amazing Spider-Man, played by Andrew Garfield. Amazing Spider-Man took most of its design cues from Earth 1610, otherwise known as the Ultimates universe. New movie, new actor, new suit. For the design of Garfield's suit, the team wanted to make a suit that Peter Parker could possibly make, primarily by making the suit out of things that he would have. For the feet, they cut out the bottom of a pair of shoes and sewed them into boots for the suit. They had looked at hundreds of shoes before settling on a pair of track shoes that got the nod from the podiatrist and the actor. The eye lenses were made from a pair of sunglass lenses. The Maguire suit had difficulty with the lenses steaming over. A bit of snorkel to direct air away could be used in close-ups. For everything else, they developed lenses that popped out without having to take the whole mask off. Garfield took 2 swings as Spider-Man before it was time to reboot the reboot, but this time in the already booted Marvel Cinematic Universe, and Tom Holland in the suit. This time, there'd be a clear delineation between what Peter made at home and what was made for him thanks to the magic of Stark Technologies. By the time Captain America Civil War hit theaters, computers ended up doing a fair amount of the heavy lifting ahead of the creation of the Homecoming suit, something that was a matter of timing. Spider-Man's triumphant arrival in the MCU was the result of a lot of backroom dealing, with the deal itself coming together at the last moment, giving them little time to develop a suit. There was a suit that was made and tested, but it never made it to the screen. This one shared a lot in common with its predecessors, specifically in the raised webbing. The back and front symbols were in line with the Steve Ditko designs, and the shoulders are unbroken. By the time Holland Spidey got a solo-ish movie, he also got a new suit. Then that suit got taken away, and then he got an even better suit, but he turned it down. It was a whole thing. On set, Holland had a practical suit that was desperately impractical, especially when it came to bathroom breaks. It's not just that the skin-tight suit was difficult. There were sequences where he also had to be in a harness that had to be cinched to tight so that it would not show through the suit. All that meant that some important organs were pressed on, and the whole contraption was a bit of an ordeal to get in and out of. The end result is, well, pressing desire to go to the bathroom that ran up against Holland's desire not to hold up production. So he'd go 11 hours without a bathroom break. He did not tell production his woes, but he did tell his mom. Mom was not shy about bringing this up. A few days after the call to his mom, the producers pulled him aside and inquired about his kidneys because his mother had called them about the situation. While embarrassed, he did end up getting adequate bathroom breaks afterwards. The lesson here for new Spider-Man actors is speak up. No one can solve a problem that they don't know about. With all that, it was probably at least kind of a good thing that the mask configuration meant that he was only able to get a drink by pushing a straw through the empty goggle space. After fighting to keep his suit in Homecoming, Peter was not allowed to say no to suits in Far From Home. Aunt May packs his Spidey suit when he tries to leave it behind. When Peter points out to not really Nick Fury that if Spider-Man keeps saving the same group of kids from the same high school, and he's the only one who never sees Spider-Man, they might start putting things together. So not Nick Fury has a new stealth suit made for him. Part of that came from director John Watts' desire to reference the Spider-Noir costume. In this case, they gave him a more tactical look, which the head of visual development at Marvel, Ryan Maynarding, looked at as an option. One of the possible ways that Peter Parker could go, making the noir suit a little more playful. They went with flip-up goggles. The detail was so specific that there was even a missing part of the outfit where they had removed the SHIELD logo from the tactical suit they based the Night Monkey suit around. The final suit's original concept would have had the final suit made from Peter's webbing that would then be configured into a suit by Tony's tech, which Maynarding said would have allowed for some more web-based gags in the final showdown. The game of magical suits really ramped up in No Way Home, with 4 suits making an appearance. He starts off in his Far From Home suit, but eventually dumps some green paint on it, causing him to flip to his Iron Spidey suit, which he uses to grab the controls for Doc Ock. Strange gives a magic touch to a suit, and then for the final battle, an integrated suit as Peter got some of his nano bits back. Why do they work with the other suit, and how are they being controlled? Hey, don't worry about it. It was that final integrated suit that caused the most problems. They started with a practical suit, but the one with the new gold trim was then digitally drawn over the onset suit. It took a combination of advanced rotoscoping and some proprietary software to make sure that the suit reacted the same way as the practical one did when it would interact with Spider-Man's amazing friends. I mean, that's what we're all hoping for, right? A new series? Spider-Man and his amazing friends, yeah? When he was hanging out with Iceman for some reason? Alongside the original spider suit design and perhaps the symbiote suit, the Iron Spider was pretty high on people's wish list. In the comics, it had been gifted to Peter for joining Team Iron Man in Civil War, before Steve Rogers did his speech-giving thing and flipped Peter to Team Cap. The MCU's The Civil War just got Peter the tech suit, but at the end of Homecoming, we got that big tease that paid off when Thanos set about making the ultimate bejeweled gauntlet. It turns out that gauntlets are exactly what Holland hates about the Iron Spidey suit, and it's something that would bother any fan, young or old, who spent a significant amount of time pretending to swing from wall to wall in the house. The gauntlets on the Iron Spider suit make it too difficult for Holland to do the iconic thwip gesture with his wrist. Yeah, that's right. The one you're doing right now instinctively because I said thwip. Where's the fun in being Spider-Man if you can't do the thwip gesture? An archenemy that's also your friend's dad? Green Goblin is about as Spider-Man a villain as you can get. While Maguire's costume was all kinds of comic booky, and the casting was ripped from the pages as if they used a Silly Putty. Side note, Silly Putty was this mushy putty that could pick up newspaper print. Why did you want to pick up newspaper print with a putty? I don't know. Toys were kind of lame for a while, but Green Goblin was a bit more of a product of early 21st century comic book movies' need for grounding, since the suit was going to be worn by a billionaire industrialist and something of a scientist himself. The idea was to make the suit look like it was a kind of tactical clean armor. Raimi's picture-perfect interpretation originally was going to extend to the Green Goblin's face. Test footage revealed that they had a combination prosthetic and animatronic face that even managed to spook the crew with its expressions. The mask was made before there was an actor to wear it, so they made 2 sizes, hoping one of them would fit. The smaller one fit Dafoe, but the apparatus to control it was too cumbersome, and the metal mask with the frozen expression was used instead. For the first 2 Spider-Man movies, there was little to complain about, and so the Green Goblin's helmet took the brunt of most of the criticism. The suit was sometimes referred to as the Power Ranger suit. When the time came to bring back the Goblin, criticism of the helmet was taken into account. That meant that Harry Osborn did what we all wanted to do. He smashed the mask and went au naturel. Willem Dafoe, talking with the other legacy villains to promote the movie, said that they were aware of the criticisms of the helmet. Dafoe also said that he didn't think of the helmet because he doesn't think about acting with his face. That is a thing that Willem Dafoe said. The guy whose face appears to be animated by Chuck Jones. What would happen if he did think about acting with his face, huh? When it came time for another signature villain for Spider-Man, the first time they had to get a bit creative. While you could consider Jurassic Park as the birth of the CGI age, it only had around 5 minutes of CGI in it. The technology just wasn't ready to make believable legs, so they went the old-fashioned route: puppets. Each leg was operated by puppeteers wearing stylish green suits. The dimensions were roughed out by strapping a harness to a production assistant and attaching dryer hoses to him to get an idea about dimensions and articulation. Once that was sorted out, it was down to creating the arms and rehearsing with the puppeteers to come up with the performance of the arms. The claws at the end, the death flowers, would initially require 3 operators all to itself until they came up with the throne, a seat with 4 articulator inputs, 1 for each limb. In the end, each arm took 4 operators to allow it to move about. The entire kit ended up tipping the scales at 100 pounds. There was a list of things that the arm had to be able to do for completion. And to make things trickier, the tentacles were under construction before the script was done. To get around on the mechanical arms, they created the Doc Ock walk rig, a tracking crane 20 feet above the actor that would suspend Doc Ock to look like he was walking on his mechanical legs. That kind of treatment would get an upgrade when Doc Ock would make his return to menace a trio of Spider-Men. Now, computer graphics are doing a lot more heavy lifting, and Doc's puppet legs became just another lost job to computers. Now, Melina was strapped to a balanced jib that could make the actor move around with ease even if he wasn't always aware it would happen. In an interview, he talked about having a discussion with fellow actors and then all of a sudden flying up and away. Comic book accurate is great until it isn't. There are some designs that are just gonna be a little too hard to translate. Clint Barton isn't gonna go around with an H on his head with big old flaps around his eyes. One of those characters that's hard to adapt is the Vulture, who started life as a middle-aged and kinda scrawny man in green tights with a pair of wings. It would end up looking like the dancing grandpa Mr. Six, you know, from the old Six Flags commercials, wearing a peacock suit. So instead, they worked backward from why he'd need to build this suit in the first place. And if he had flying wings, what else would he need? A helmet for oxygen, warm clothes for the colder air at altitude. The result was the large wing apparatus to contrast the Falcon's wings that fold onto a backpack. Vultures were assembled from found objects by the Tinkerer and ends up with a menacing, massive device. Holland's second solo-ish outing saw him facing down pretend elementals, who were actually the work of the master of pretendy stuff, Mysterio. Or what would happen if a special effects artist broke bad in the most theatrical way possible. His suit posed its own problems, but despite concerns, it still came in pretty close to the comic book look, just with more blinky lights and doodads. During the construction of the suit, the intent was never to have Jake Gyllenhaal wear this suit, but best laid plans of mice and special effects artists. Gyllenhaal did end up wearing the suit, including the incredibly heavy cape that had lights embedded into it to help give it that I'm from another dimension look. Imagine the surprise the Mysterio team felt when they found out that the multiverse really was real. Holland complimented his co-star for wearing the suit without complaint like a champ, but did express that he hopes he never has to wear that much spandex ever again. Him apparently asking for his people to get him out of his suit apparently was not acting. If fans were not happy with the look from the original Green Goblin, they had nothing on the reaction to the depiction of Electro in Amazing Spider-Man 2, drawing inspiration from the Ultimates again, since the original Electro has maybe the goofiest bad guy getup with a lightning bolt face crown and striking green and yellow. The result was a CGI electric blue that no one really liked, including Jamie Foxx, who requested for his return that he not be blue. For his turn in Earth 199999, why so many nines? No matter how many times I say it, I gotta double check. Surely it's not 5 nines, is it? Yeah, no it is. Anyway, for his turn in Earth all the nines, he would instead start piecing together the advanced Stark influenced technology of that world, including incorporating an arc reactor to give him that extra little bit of a boost. Aside from knowing that he will die when he returns to his own reality, it's the extra special nature of the electricity in the MCU that motivated him not to leave. For that, the designers created a suit that was built off the safety suit that he stole from the power line worker, and the bits of technology he put together to harness MCU tech. He even got his lightning face crown to a degree. When he would charge up for a big hit, the lightning would form the shape of his cowl around his face. Really, the only thing left is to get a good amount of time in the black symbiote suit with the giant white Spider-Man emblem. It's really been notably absent from both depictions of Venom so far, but with Hardy's Venom forming a one symbiote Spider-Man fan club, maybe it will happen when the two finally meet.